Long ago, there was a large and intimidating woman known as Mrs. G, famous among the villagers for selling the best meat soup at the market. Her food was always fresh and of the highest quality, and every market day, she would arrive with her massive cooking pot. She didn't engage with anyone and remained silent, but quickly a crowd would gather, and her meals would sell out in the blink of an eye. Once everything was sold, she would quietly leave with her empty pot. The villagers were puzzled by how Mrs. G could offer such delicious, generous servings at such low prices. Even beggars could eat their fill. The portions of meat were so large that people could save leftovers for the next day. Other food merchants grew jealous of her success. They couldn't understand how she made any profit considering the high cost of ingredients, and some even speculated that she must not live in the same country to be able to afford selling at such rates. Meanwhile, there was a disturbing pattern. Every Sunday, a child would go missing, whether from the neighborhood or the market itself. No one could figure out why or how these disappearances happened, and the strong bond among the villagers made it difficult to suspect anyone of such evil deeds. Mrs. G remained unaffected by the rumors. She kept to herself, only interacting with people when they came to buy her food, and otherwise kept a distance from others. Children found Mrs. G frightening and odd. Whenever their football accidentally rolled near her cooking pot, she would react furiously, often cutting their ball with a knife, leaving the children heartbroken and running to complain to their parents. Because of her temper, the village children learned never to disturb her, especially when she was at the market. Among them was a girl named Amina, who grew curious about Mrs. G's behavior. She noticed that despite the woman's rudeness, people continued to flock to her. Determined to uncover the truth, Amina decided to follow her one evening after the market. When Mrs. G packed up and left as usual, she made her way toward the forbidden forest, a place the elders had long warned everyone to avoid. There were many terrifying stories about the forbidden forest. Some said it was where the village's evil spirits held their gatherings, among other unspeakable horrors. Watching Mrs. G head straight into the forest filled Amina with dread, but her curiosity drove her to follow, walking carefully to avoid detection. Although she tried to stay quiet, fear gnawed at her, and questions raced through her mind. Mrs. G moved quickly, forcing Amina to speed up as well, all while struggling not to make a sound. Then, to Amina's shock, she saw 5 ghostly women, all dressed in black, gathered under a large iroko tree. They seemed to be waiting for Mrs. G, who still carried her large pot used for cooking at the market. Hiding behind a mangrove tree, Amina observed as the women warmly greeted Mrs. G and discussed how they would split the money Mrs. G had earned, as well as strategies for abducting more children. Amina's spying was abruptly interrupted when she accidentally stepped on a dry branch, making a loud crack. Instantly, all the women turned their eyes toward her. Mrs. G, furious and clutching her pot, stared in anger. Frozen in fear, Amina slowly retreated before running at full speed back toward the village. Breathless and terrified, Amina reached the village square and reported everything she had witnessed to the king. Skeptical and concerned, the king warned Amina of the dangers she had risked and questioned her story, emphasizing the possibility that she could have been possessed or harmed. Nevertheless, taking her seriously, he ordered his guards to accompany Amina back to the forest to capture the culprits. Meanwhile, Mrs. G and her companions, aware they had been discovered, debated whether they should return to the village or stay hidden. Mrs. G advised them to stay, fearing they would be killed if they tried to go back. Guided by Amina, the king's guards stormed into the forest, captured the women, and tied their hands tightly like criminals, beating them as they did so. The guards also found and collected the clothes of the missing children, which were hanging from the trees. Dragging the captured women back to the village, they presented them before the assembled crowd. The villagers were horrified to recognize the clothes of their lost children. Filled with rage and sorrow, the king spat on Mrs. G and the other women for committing such a horrific sacrilege. Some villagers, devastated and regretful, wept bitterly, especially those who had eaten Mrs. G's food. The parents of the murdered children cried uncontrollably in grief. Overwhelmed by the horror, the king ordered the villagers to stone Mrs. G and her accomplices to death, declaring they did not deserve to live. Thanks to Amina's bravery, the village was saved. In recognition of her courage, the king rewarded her. The moral of this story is to always be cautious about what you eat from strangers, and to remember that no one should ever be killed to replace an animal.